शुरू हो गया है. What's the faces you're making? ये क्या ऐसे कर रही हो? ये कर क्या रही हो? It's way past your bedtime. People, we're going to be performing a live exorcism. What the hell? That's so naughty. Right, off you go to bed. Off you go to bed. जाओ सीधा दरवाजा बंद कर दो. ये दरवाजा बंद कर दो. शाबाश. All right, people. So, what is going on? What is going on? Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا حونين Leicester, bienvenidos a todos, بخير راغلي people, خوش آمدید and swagatam. So, right, what is going on, people? What is going on? Yeah, are they staying up? No, I'll have to bring them down. Let me just share the live. Share the love, people. Share the love. Un momento, espérame. Let me just share this. It's just gonna... Where is it? Usually it comes up straight away. Alright. Come on. You could do this. You could do this. Right, so I'll tell you what, I'm straightening this. What's going on? Why is it freezing on me? Come on. You can do this. Oh my God, this is crazy. It shouldn't be that complicated. Nope, not coming up. Wow. Yes, salam. Come on. Notice they've changed the way the Facebook app is. Can't seem to... Where the hell is my page? Oh, right, okay. I'm like proper handicapped here. They changed the layout and I can't seem to find it. Oh damn, I just saw myself there. Right, now. Almost done. Alright, come on. Speed. The need for speed, people. Alright, there you go. Finally. Por fin. Oh damn, that's me. Right, so people. Alright, ¿qué está pasando? ¿Qué onda? Right, what's going on? Salam from Antarctica. Yes, salam. If I've got people listening to me in Antarctica, wow. Let me just completely violate some book here and use it as a coaster. Well, I suppose the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet in Spanish. What the hell? Right, so right, what's going on? Salam from Botswana, Mustaqim Habib, ahlan wa sahlan bik. Salam Mufti, where are you from? From Birmingham, UK, people. Birmingham, UK. How much do you charge for a talk? Yes, salam. What made you think I charge? Admin, Refer him to my Swiss account details. Sorry, I mean my cryptocurrency. Oh, what's going on, man? What's going on? Somebody said, Shireen Khalid said, Salam Mufti Ji, looking very summary. Shukran, shukran. Lol, I'm not your top fan yet, but the badge says top fan. Ya salam. This is where you say something and the reality contradicts you on the spot. That's what we're talking about, people. That's what we're talking about. So let's have some people tune in. Is it permissible to be Quran? Is it permissible to be a Quran teacher just for money? I love the brutal honesty that I'm here just for the money, huh? यार कुछ नोटंकी सीखो, कुछ नोटंकी. You know, there must be some. You gotta dramatize it a little. You gotta just for the theme. You know, it's for if one child can learn Alif Lam Mim, just one. So, the money. Go on then. I'll go on then. Itne pyar se de rahe ho, you're giving it with this much love, I can't turn it away. Chalo, no, if you can add another few thousands to that, please. This is the Oscar-nominated performance, you know. Es muy necesario. Right, so Salam Wasif Bey, ahlan wa sahlan. Hola, Lolito. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Can you respond to Tony J? I don't know who does Tony J regarding the historicity of Islam, the Uthmanic texts, and the historical criticism of secular scholars. I don't know what Tony J's criticism is. Chalo, bhej do. Send it this way. Don't worry about it. Will you ever delve into academia? I need some references for my thesis. What makes you think you can't quote me for your thesis? Apun Mufti Abu Layth. You think I'm below I'm way above those academic professors that are lecturing you on Islam. Say to them, the Mufti has said so. Mufti, do you watch Game of Thrones? I've seen Game of Thrones. I haven't caught up with the last season thing, but yeah. So, there are no Uthmanic texts around today according to secular scholars. The Uthmanic, give us Mufti Abu Layth clips. Alright, give us a shout out. The new page dedicated to my clips. Eyes, mwah. Geo, Mary Jan, Geo. Eyes touched, touched. Okay. You need to get on it. You need to get on it. Anisa from Manchester wants to ask you, why are you nutty? Well, it is what it is. Sham, ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. Hoor is asking, people, a Hoor from Jannah has joined us. A Hoor. And the Hoor is asking, is it Salman Khan or is it Shah Rukh Khan? Yeah, what is preoccupying the thoughts of these Hoors? I mean, where will the rest of us bichare Muslims go if they can only think about Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan? Both are, I'm sure they're awesome in their own way. Mufti, why the no show? Come visit. Can you recite a Naat, please? I can't recite a Naat. I'm not a Naat reciter. You see, the interesting thing is that, many years ago, when I was in Pakistan studying. So I had studied first initially in Damascus and done my basic kind of studies, and I'd gone to Pakistan, and I'd done my hifz, and then I was doing my alim course in Karachi, and I was doing all of these kind of, and my own kind of critical thinking and the research, and in between I would visit the village in Azad Kashmir where we're from. So by Dadial, those of you that are thinking, huh, Dadial? Yes, Dadial, right? So I'd visit the village, and this one time I was there, and somebody said that, my grandfather at the time, may Allah give him an elevated maqam in Jannatul Firdaus, very pious man. I mean, my paternal grandfather, both were epic, but my paternal grandfather was a very kind of like a pious Allah wala, like very Sufic, very used to always spend time. Every other week he would visit the Pir Sahib in Kotli, and he would always, like, for decades on end, like since he was young, he was very close with the Pir Sahib and dedicated his whole life like that. Every night almost if he could, tahajjud, recitation of the Quran. Very, very kind of a pious person, a great human being, I have to say. My maternal grandfather, a great human being as well, but very stylish, very slick, very super polar opposites. He was a hero and a legend in a different way. He was epic. He used to have, I shared a picture of his, a tattoo on his forehead of the crescent and the star, and he was an amazing individual. But nevertheless, coming back to this, so he said he got into it. So he asked me, but it's very simple, obviously village kind of people, and he said, well, I've told them in the masjid about all your studies and everything, and they're saying, like, and he said, well, but, and they're saying, yeah, and we're having this discussion, and he said, but you can't, like the grandson of such and such person, or the son of such and such person, he can read a Naat. He like read a qasida like that. He can read a Naat. Urdu Naat is like any qasida in the praise of the Prophet. They call it a Naat. And they said, and he said to me that person they can all read Naats. I mean, what? I don't get what you've been studying. I thought, well, okay, that's not how it works. It doesn't. I haven't gone to singing class. I've been learning. So it's amazing how the measure of everything. But it's, I suppose, a simple way of looking at things. So what else is going on, people? What else? But speaking about Naats, sorry, not that it's a Naat, but from Naat, linking poetry. There was a poem I came across, I was reading it, and it struck a chord with me, people. Allah, Allah. When the moment is just right, and you're thinking, wow, this God, and you're just in a different zone. But I thought I'd share this poem with you while some people are still tuning on. Right, so the rest of you can be clicking like and clicking share and spreading the love and the fitan and the fasad, people. But there was this poem. It's by a poet, Pakistani poet, Aitbar. He goes by the name Aitbar Sajid, and it's "Mujhe aisa lutf ata kiya ke jo hijr tha na visal tha." So I'll try and translate some of it, but that does really kill some of the flow. But chalo, for the illiterate. But the whole poem is, so he says that mujhe aisa lutf ata kiya ke jo hijr tha na visal tha, mere mausamon ke mizaj daan, tujhe mera kitna khayal tha. That this was your kind of benevolence towards me, basically. He's speaking about a relationship, that the relationship was neither in existence nor in non-existence. Like, not hijr is like abandonment, and visal is usually when you meet somebody that you have a relationship with. That मेरे मौसमों के मिजाज दान तुझे मेरा कितना ख्याल था. Now this is interesting. Who is he addressing by this? It could be that he's addressing the other person. It could be that he's addressing God. That you who watches over the seasons of my nature, that you really looked out for me. But there's obviously sarcasm in this. किसी और चेहरे को देखकर तेरी शक्ल ज़हन में आ गई. That after looking at some other face, that you came to mind. तेरा नाम लेके मिला उसे मेरे हाफिज़े का ये हाल था. That when I addressed that person, I took your name by accident. That was the state of my memory. That तेरा नाम लेके मिला उसे मेरे हाफिज़े का ये हाल था. कभी मौसमों के सराब में, कभी बाम दर के अजाब में, वहाँ उम्र हमने गुजार दी जहाँ सांस लेना मुहाल था. Hi, 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 hi. He says, like, he's speaking about what life that has shown him, the vicissitudes, and whether it was the seasons were simply a mirage, or was that the whole torment of it. But he says, I've spent a lifetime in such a state where even a breath was taking a simple breath was impossible. वहाँ उम्र हमने गुजार दी जहाँ सांस लेना मुहाल था. Muhal means impossible, from the Arabic word impossible. कभी तूने गौर नहीं किया कि ये लोग कैसे उजड़ गए. कोई मीर जैसा गिरफ्ता दिल तेरे सामने की मिसाल था. हाय People, he says that you've never really pondered how those people before you perished. Even though the legend of Mir and his girafta dil, his captured heart, his captivated heart, were an example right in front of you. Allah, Allah, Allah. Tere baad koi nahi mila, jo ye haal dekh ke पूछता मुझे किसकी आग जला गई मेरे दिल को किसका मलाल था. कहीं, now check this out, people, his final killer, the nail in the coffin, the final line. कहीं खून दिल से लिखा तो था तेरे साल हिजर का सानेहा. वो अधूरी डायरी खो गई वो ना जाने कौन सा साल था. Allah, Allah, Allah. He says, I had written with the blood of my heart the saga of that year when everything broke down. But he says, but that incomplete diary, I don't know where I lost it. And what was that year again? Which year did it happen in again? But I thought that was honestly amazing. I read this poem and I was so gripped by his words, by the expression. Anyway, I thought I'd share it. What else is going on, people? What else is going on? So, okay, whilst people are tuning in, let's catch up with some weekly things that have been happening. So, first of all, I'd like to make a request for a dua. Those of you, I did make a post, those of you that know Sheikh Abdul Hameed, from Leicester, very dear friend of mine. He is in a very critical state, and I mean by critical as in I believe he's in a coma currently, and the doctors have it's not looking very positive. And I don't just mean in terms of life, I mean in terms of the damage that has been done and things like that. But I mean, if we could make dua for him, he was involved in a tragic motorbike accident. And I don't know the details of the accident. See, the sad, I mean, that's tragic as it is, but what adds to the tragedy was the day he had the accident, he was supposed to meet up with me. So he had an event with the cave, who are very close to me, and he was supposed to be doing a kind of speech there, and then after that, we were supposed to be kind of meeting up. So towards the evening, I'd kind of asked that what's going on with the meetup, is Sheikh Hameed here? And so nobody knew about the accident. They just said that, oh, he hadn't turned up and he hadn't answered his phone. So I thought maybe he just got held up, only to realize that, damn, he'd come home from somewhere, or he was on his way home. He was in Leicester, and he was then going to, I think, collect his family and then make his way to Birmingham. And it's on his way home that he'd had this very tragic accident, motorbike accident, that's left him, I think it's very likely that it may have led to some brain damage and things like this. I mean, may Allah give him a swift and complete recovery. Hayyahullah wa shafahu wa afahu. May Allah preserve him, protect him, may He make things easy for his family. These kind of things are just so tragic to think about, really. And even everything. I mean, one is the concept of life and death in and of itself, and one is, I suppose, people around you. Because when you think about these things, I know he has some very, if I'm correct, I think 3 very young daughters, and if I'm correct, and young children. And it makes one think that how everything as you know it could just come to a stop in a single moment, and that's so. And the worst thing is I suppose the helpless nature of everything. So, but the Hadith does teach us, the Quran teaches us that, look, make dua. I mean, people, there's another Maulana, a friend of ours, who's a closer friend of Sheikh Abdul Hameed, but he's a friend to me as well. He's from Leicester as well, and he was also involved in a similar accident many years ago, and of a more devastating nature. But alhamdulillah, he did, hugely pull through. I mean, maybe not 100%, but at least 95%, 97% he pulled through. And so, we make dua, yassar Allah. And these things, subhanAllah, I have to say that the motorbikes are so, and they're so vulnerable. It's amazing how vulnerable they are. It's something I could never really get into. I remember mucking about once or twice, trying on some motorbikes. But the sad, unfortunate reality is everybody I know that owns a bike, everybody that I know, as in I know them, actually know them, they've been involved in at least one major accident on the bike. I mean, like by major, I mean it's involved surgery and things like this, and like rehab, and ya salam, ya salam. May Allah make things easy for each and all. Right, so cool. That moving, while still on a serious note, let's discuss, people, this Easter Sunday tragic event that took place in Sri Lanka, that claimed there was a series of suicide attacks, suicide bombing attacks, that I believe about 6, which led to the tragic death toll of approximately 290 people. So almost 300 people died in a string of suicide bombing attacks across, I believe there were 3 churches and 3 upscale, uptown kind of hotels that these people went in whilst people were engaged in prayers or celebrations or things like this. And these people not only took their own lives, but the lives of hundreds of people around them. and injured many more. And it's, first of all, our thoughts, our du'as, our prayers are with all those that have been killed. I believe that they have died, that they've been martyred in these attacks, and with their families who've suffered. And it's so shocking and sad to hear, one, about this event, and then to realize, oh, it's a Muslim group claim responsibility that go by, I think, the NTJ, which is like the National Tawheed Jamaat or something. And I'd like to say a word or two about this as well. But before I come to that, I would like to say that my condemnation on the Sri Lankan government, really, for refusing to take action and protect those people. Do you know, if you check up, the Sri Lankan government has been receiving intelligence about these potential attacks from the beginning of April. Repeatedly, they've been tipped off by multiple intelligentsia. They've been told that there's going to be an attack, if not a series of attacks on Easter, aimed at churches. This began from, they've received intelligence on April the 4th, April the 5th, April the 9th, April the 10th, and it's been ongoing since, up until even 10 minutes prior to the attacks. They received certain intelligence telling them that, look, something is about to happen. Amongst the people warning, amongst the intelligentsia, you've even had Muslims, local Muslims, warning against this nutcase group, this National Tawheed Jamaat, or whatever they call themselves, NTJ. Muslims telling the authorities that, look, these people are nutcases. These people, they are a Salafist, hardcore kind of, like, they are jihadi kind of group, and we're warning you against these people. You need to do something about these people. You need to monitor what's going on. And first of all, I commend the actions of those Muslims that informed the authorities about this group. Yet the authorities in Sri Lanka failed to take action. So that I strongly condemn the apathy in this. It's cost the lives of hundreds of people. And then now, just speaking a bit about this Salafist thing, you see, it's not that all Salafis, it's not that all Wahhabis are kind of jihadi. It's not that. That's not true. However, the Wahhabi ideology is a perfect kind of, is fertile ground, very fertile ground, and a kind of an easy springboard to this jihadist, violent, terrorist mindset of some jihadists. It's an easy springboard to that. So it is not that the Wahhabi thing in and of itself is like, so every Wahhabi or every Salafi is a jihad. It's not like that. But this mindset easily can facilitate that. It's fertile ground for somebody with that kind of militant mentality who approaches the Salafi da'wah. He will find a lot of material pushing him in that direction. So he will find a lot of books written on al-wala wal-bara. This al-wala wal-bara is one of the worst goddamn cancerous ideologies that has emerged. Okay, this needs to be burnt and buried. This al-wala wal-bara, we love and hatred for the sake of Allah, which is really a sheer, pure Salafist kind of way of thinking, that we must hate the kuffar, but we must hate them for the sake of Allah. It's not exclusive to some other groups do have this kind of thing as well. but you see it heavily promoted amongst Salafi literature. Things like this, things like the works of Ibn Taymiyyah, the works of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, I was about to say al-Baghdadi, but Ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Najdi, his works which heavily speak about killing killing people who apostates, and by his understanding most Muslims were apostates. So this dehumanization, this literature of dehumanization of anybody who doesn't praise a kafir, anybody who does, so you're going to find a lot of things that will easily camouflage and boost people that approach this da'wah with a militant mentality. So that's the dangerous thing about the Salafist da'wah. It's not as a whole, to be fair, it's not a terrorist da'wah per se, it's not, but it's fertile ground for that kind of terrorist mindset. So although you will find extremists in other groups as well, so you'll find Sufi radicals and extremists. Mumtaz Qadri was a good example of somebody who was prepared to kill people because he believed they had blasphemed. Now he was a Sufi, a Brelvi, and he was shockingly supported by many Brelvis, and very few people were prepared to call him out. Now he was an extremist, he was a Khawarij by that mentality, but he was a Sufi, he wasn't a Salafi. But it's not as common to, like, the Sufi kind of narrative isn't a fertile breeding ground for extremism. You will find extremists among Sufis as well. You will find that amongst other groups as well, but it's not fertile ground, that's what I'm saying. So I hope that makes some sense. I'm really disturbed once again by these people doing this, and some people ask me, Mufti, what do you think should be done? I think we are helpless, but we need to not give up. Okay, we need to make sure that this reason-based understanding, this enlightened understanding of the deen reaches Muslims, reaches those Muslims coming after us, that we can't just give up. Because if we give up on this message, then it will be hijacked by these people. That you have to understand that we are part of that final bastion of hope for the new coming generation. You know, we cannot allow these people to hijack Islam. Okay, I've read, there's a post, sometimes there's a brother, he comes on the lives and he's on Facebook, Muhammad, his name is like Muhammad ibn Muhammad, and it's written in Arabic, and he shares some very thought-provoking posts at some time. But I've read on he made a post once, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this because it was a public post he made. He said, look, I'm just fed up with Islam, the way it's presented, and I've realized that my understanding of Islam doesn't resonate with many people out there. Therefore, I'm questioning whether I should even be Muslim or claim, like I can forever. His point was, I can keep my bond with God, but I don't want to be, should I be part of the Muslim community? Because I don't fit into any of these sects, and my understanding is so radically different. You see, my response to him, and is to anybody who's contemplating this out there, that look, no sect, no mullah, no Molvi, no group has a monopoly on Islam. Islam is for everybody. If we feel that some people are hijacking or defacing or mutating the face of Islam, then rather than backing off, then on the contrary, there is even greater pressure on us to stand up, to champion, to reclaim Islam, to not allow these people to get away with this message of hate. Because what will the people after us say? That we abandoned this just out of because we couldn't be bothered. That, you know, oh, I can't be bothered, you know, so we let Islam just become completely mutated by people who have social media capacity and people who have so much petrol dollars, or people who have so many things that they can print books and share them. No, we must stand in, you know, that if anything, they must go through us rather than us stepping aside. So I refuse myself to bow down to and to succumb to these kind of cries of hate. And I advise other people as well, as I advise that brother and any others, that look, don't give up. You know, as Allah says in the Quran, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. You know, do not give in, Allah says, and do not be sad. You know, أَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ, that you will overcome, you will succeed. Allah says that you see, well, watch, you will, أَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ, you will be those who come above. إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ, that if, so long as you keep on, so long as you hold that in faith. So that's my my thoughts on that matter. Right, okay, let's move on to some other questions. What about the hadith about my ummah will not agree on error? I think in principle that's true, that the whole ummah will never forever be misguided, but the hadith is weak, in all honesty, although I accept the principle that every single Muslim on earth won't be completely wouldn't have lost the plot. So I hope that's cool. Is there any benefit, need or precedence in facing the Kaaba when making dua, or to cover our heads when making dua? Elizabeth, no, not at all. We don't need to face the Kaaba when making dua. The Kaaba is simply a qibla, which means a point of focus for prayer. It's an excellent tool in giving Muslims a visual kind of unifying focus. And it's amazing how Islam has done that. But it's not God doesn't live there in the... I actually remember, when I was these are some of my very earliest memories. So I must have been like 5 or 4. But I remember that we had, obviously I had many pictures, but there was a picture of the Kaaba on our wall. And I was told at home that that's where God lives. It's Allah ka ghar hai. It's like God's house. So, I mean, I was an absolute kid. So I actually thought, oh, is that where... But I'm sure, with age, I obviously began to realize, oh, that's not what it means. But my point, God doesn't actually live there. Although as a kid, I was confused. I was like, that's... And it's amazing that, we had this picture. This was the old Mecca. It's not the modern Mecca. So it was an old picture. It was a slight aerial view of Kaaba. It's not the prestigious haram today, but it was that smaller, those of you that remember the old photographs, so you can check them online. And you had the buildings in the background, and they weren't as, as the skyscrapers of today, but there were still quite a few buildings around. And I was a little kid, and the buildings in the background, right? The buildings in the background appeared like the way they were risen and the way they had this shape to it. It looked like, okay, guys, don't kill me. I was only like about 4 or about 5 at the time. But it looked like the shape of a dog. the buildings in the background, some of the buildings. So I remember saying, oh, look, oh, look, that's like a dog. So then I got this, right, some of the signs of my deviation appeared at a young age. They thought I was saying it to the picture which had the Kaaba. I wasn't. I was talking about the buildings in the background. The way they were structured, it looked like there were these pores, and it was the old photos and the mountain, and you know, sometimes you can just see a shape in something. So as a kid, I could just see a shape, and I was just saying, oh, look, that looks like a dog. And they were like, Astaghfirullah, the Kaaba, Astaghfirullah, Makkah. And from there, my tiger tongue po kickboxing training began. I was obviously the punch bag. I played the role as the punch bag. It was Jackie Chan movies. I had to do all those kind of blocks. But yeah, so but it's amazing as kids, you know, what you just so innocently say things. Obviously to other people it's like, what the hell is he on about? But yeah, so did Moses talk to Allah directly? I don't think, you see, I think, in my understanding, I think the conversation was something that wasn't heard by other people. It wasn't like, right, so how you doing? It wasn't like that kind of a conversation. I feel it was like an intuition kind of conversation, maybe. That's my understanding. I don't know. Obviously I wasn't there, but just common sense and reason tells us it's not going to be something like, hey, I mean, maybe Moses was speaking like that. We're not speaking about Moses was probably speaking like that, but the voice that he was hearing, was it like was it a voice that was inside him that he felt was outside, like people when they hear a voice, but it's not actually out here, like there's nobody here, but they hear, oh my God, I heard somebody say something. Was it like that, a voice that he was hearing, but other people around him wouldn't have been able to hear it? I would assume, because it's not like Allah was actually there in front of him, but in all truth, we don't really know these things. We're just told that, oh, and Moses spoke to God. That's all we're told. Now the rest we kind of fill in with our imagination. But I think if we're just going to take it like that, it's fine. But if we start scrutinizing it, then it's got to add up to reason. That's all. Type in Mufti Abu Layth. What's going on? Right, sorry. Is there a difference between how Malikis look at qiyas and Zahiris? Do you follow the Zahiri school regarding qiyas? Qiyas is analogy, people. I do accept analogy. Analogy is that basically we've got a ruling and we're going to make analogies on it. So as an example, I said women can do wudu over, you know, nail polish, nail varnish. They don't need to remove their nail varnish. They don't need to remove their makeup to do wudu. And for that I've used multiple evidences, not just qiyas, but qiyas is also one of them. So I've gone with the understanding that, look, wudu demands, or any washing demands, that we wash the apparent, not what lies beneath. So you see, even when we're washing the face, what's mandatory is simply the apparent, not like you don't have to, like rinsing the mouth is just sunnah because it's not apparent, or you wouldn't have to get water in your eyes, for example, because it's not apparent at the surface. I mean, it's slightly beneath. So the same thing, you wouldn't have to get water in your nostrils or have to get water in your inside your ears, because these things are not at the surface. Like when a person washes his feet, he doesn't have to get the water in between the toes, although that's sunnah, but it's not necessary, because it's not the apparent. So based on that, whatever, we just go with the apparent. So nail varnish, it's the apparent. So you just go with it. Now, one of the things I did say is that, look, you can take a look at some of the rulings, like how Imam Malik said you didn't need to move the ring. You didn't need to remove it, neither move it, even if it was tight and you were doing wudu. So that meant that beneath it, certain elements may remain dry. Now, I said, well, one could easily take that ruling, the understanding, and in an analogous kind of manner, that's an element of qiyas, say, well, nail varnish is the same kind of thing. So, because neither are necessary, a ring is not necessary to wear, neither is nail varnish. But a ring a person might wear because it looks good, and women, or nowadays men, oh my, nail varnish, right? So nail varnish, they wear it because it looks good. So that's my answer. So I do accept qiyas. The Zahiriya did not accept qiyas, but the Zahiriya were still cool kind of people. I mean, amongst them, Ibn Hazm obviously was a legend. And he used this principle. He really, you know what, Ibn Hazm, he brought back to life the true law of defaults within Islam. Because for a few centuries it had become institutionalized. So he brought back to life that, you know, this law of defaults, like you are innocent till proven guilty, that everything is permissible until proven haram, that things are pure until proven impure, that things are... So this kind of law of defaults. Now, some of them were fine, that people did accept, but this thing that everything is permissible until proven haram, people accepted in theory in their books, but they refused to administer this principle in their daily lives. And Ibn Hazm really brought that back to the surface. And I totally rate him for doing that, because that is a true principle of Islam. Right, so God ain't 60 cubits in height. Nope, he ain't. Right, I don't understand the question. Organ donation. Yep, I've done that before. Origin behind your infamous quote, naughty, naughty. Well, I'm sure you can find the video clip. It's basically somebody asking a ruling on masturbation. So I say in that, you know, no, actually, that's I say, you see, I say you naughty, naughty so many times. So that's one of the clips. There's another one where I'm saying, you naughty, naughty, teasing me, right? With that one, you naughty, teasing me, you not. I think that's where somebody had asked me, am I married? And that's where I responded by saying, you teasing me, naughty, naughty. That's the kind of context behind it. But it's in my, on my YouTube videos. Right, thoughts on Muhammad hijab debate with Edward Tabash. I haven't seen it really. Is there a difference between the way Malikis? Nope, I've answered that. Sarfaraz Salim, you're doing it, people. Sarfaraz Salim, an ustad who teaches, I believe, if I'm correct. And so people, check out his classes and his teaching. What do you think about Asma' al-Rijal tradition, which is followed by Muhaddithin? I think I've answered this before, that the Asma' al-Rijal tradition, it's great work, but we need something to be able to assess the truthfulness of a hadith today. Like when I open a hadith, so let's say, this is random. I mean, the book ain't random. It's Imam Bukhari's book. But let's just say, now you open right, any hadith now. Okay. So let's say we begin a hadith, but this is tafsir, so it's not many rulings in that. Maghazi, not many rulings. But taken the wrong. Okay, Kitab al-Talaq, something to do with rulings now. Right, so let's say here we're saying that the Prophet, so it's addressing us on li'an or dhihar or al-ishara fi talaq. So babul ishara fi talaq wal umur, that indicating towards talaq. So قال ابن عمر قال النبي لا يعذب الله بدمع العين ولكن يعذب بهذا فأشار إلى لسانه. So, okay, this is Ibn Umar saying that the Prophet said that God won't take you to task with your tears, as in things like that are not what you're taken to task about, but rather with this, meaning the tongue, with what you say. Okay, that's a general hadith, that's fine. But let's say we want to take a ruling from one of these hadith, and we want to know, did the Prophet actually say this? So I was just trying to see if there was something relevant. Nevertheless, okay, so وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنَّا, do not marry non-Muslim, but here by non-mushrikat, women of shirk, until they believe. Now here Ibn Umar said, he was asked about marrying a Christian or a Jewish woman, and he said, Inna Allah. Oh no, this is just a statement of Ibn Umar. I thought it might be a hadith. But if you read this, like Aisha here is saying that Barira, that she wanted to buy a slave girl, Barira, فَأَبَا مَوَالِيَهَا إِلَّا أَنْ يَشْتَرِطُ الْوَلَاء, except they wanted to, the people who were selling her had some conditions that they, after, if she's freed, whatever, so they had this condition to do with who does the association remain with. But the point is, without getting lost into the issue, if we want to know, did the Prophet actually say this? So he says here, حدثنا عبد الله بن رجاء قال أخبرنا شعبة عن الحكم عن إبراهيم عن الأسود, that Aisha said this. So we've got Abdullah ibn Raja who's saying أخبرنا شعبة from Hakam, from Ibrahim, from Aswad, that Aisha said this. But the truth is, by simply reading a chain, does it make the hadith true? Now people will say, just because the chain has valid people in there, it is definitely a valid and true statement. This is what they will say. But the reality is, why? Why would that make it automatically a true statement? Because, see, like, in fact, I'll give you a good example. I just thought I'll read that one. Here we've got the example of a hadith in Sahih Bukhari which disrespects the Prophet. And I've quoted this before, that the Prophet, that is transmitted by Abu Nu'aym from Abdurrahman ibn Ghasil and Hamza ibn Abi Usaid from Abi Usaid radiallahu an, that he says, we left with the Prophet until he came to a place يقال له الشوط حتى انتهينا إلى حائطين. So they came to this, there was like a small kind of farm thing, and then we sat in between them, and the Prophet said, wait here. And then he was brought بالجونية with this woman. She came فأنزلت في بيت في نخل. They brought her to this house of, anyway, the whole moving forward with the story, the Prophet goes to her and says, give yourself to me. Hibi nafsak li. قالت وهل تهب الملكة نفسها للسوقة. And she said, would a queen give herself to low-life people? Now, then it says the Prophet tried to touch her, and فأهوى بيده يضع يده عليها لتسكن, to calm her down. He tried to touch her, and she said, أعوذ بالله منك, I seek refuge in Allah from you. And the Prophet said, oh, you've sought refuge in the Almighty, and leaves her. Now this hadith goes against our utter absolute understanding of not only the Quran when it speaks about the Prophet, it goes against our understanding of nikah, it goes against our understanding of the character of the Prophet, it goes against, and this is blasphemous. Now, just because people have said Abu Naim and Abdurrahman ibn Ghasil and Hamza ibn Abi Asid, and these people on their own are okay transmitters, it doesn't mean everything they ever transmitted must always be accurate. So how do we assess this today? We assess this by, first of all, we do look at the sanad. That's fine. We can tick that. If it's okay, then we suspend it. Then we look at the content of the hadith, the matan. If the content clashes with... Oh, I just realized this had frozen. Right, if the content clashes with our understanding of the Quran, with our understanding of the Prophet and Islamic principles and reason, then we will throw that hadith away. There is no way on earth that hadith can be correct if it goes against the Quran, against the Sunnah of the Prophet, against reason, against our understanding of the Prophet, the character of the Prophet, if it's blasphemous. So this is my point, that we have to have matan criticism. We have to look at the matan. If the matan is problematic, then it definitely, there must have been some mistake in the illah. In the sanad. Somebody got it wrong. And it doesn't matter if he generally used to get things right, but we can then look into the sanad and problematize it. Right, okay. Man arafa nafsa arafa rabbah. Yeah, that is a hadith. It's a weak hadith, but the message behind it, I like the message behind it, that whosoever knows themselves, then by knowing yourself you can know your Lord. Do I mean that there are no proper rules to check? I think that there are rules, but the emphasis which I'd like to remind everybody is these rules are arbitrary. There are rules. There are plenty of rules. I've got books and books and books. I've got those whole shelves dedicated to ilm al-hadith, to the study of, which are all to do with rijal, by the way. I've got books here behind you. I've got the ilal of Darqutni right here above there. I've got Ibn Qattan al-Fasi's critique. I've got other ilal book right here, the Tahdhib, the Tahdhib. I've got other. My point is that, look, there are plenty of rules about critiquing rijal, about critiquing narrators of hadith. The problem is that we forget at times that these rules are arbitrary. Like, people just came up with them. Yes, a lot of them make sense, but the people that came up with them were equally challenged by other people that came up with other things challenging them. So we've got a whole pool of opinions regarding narrators. Some of them just got more popular than others. And now we go with the most popular ones, which is fine, until there's a problem. Now, when we read something problematic like that, or we read that the Prophet encouraged, for example, in Sahih Muslim, he told Sayyidina Ali to just go and do an extrajudicial killing, like just go and kill this person because I think he's having an affair with my wife. I mean, that's just utterly against Islam. That's against the Sharia. The Prophet would never do something like that. There would be a fair trial. I mean, there is no trial. He just sends Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh to kill him. And then Sayyidina Ali realizes, the person he's castrated, doesn't even have a penis. So he definitely couldn't have had an affair. So the Prophet got it wrong anyway. I mean, how ridiculously absurd and blasphemous do we want to get? So my point is, when we have a problem like that, there's two things we can do. We can either just say, right, stop, pull the brakes and say, nope, this hadith is unacceptable. That's the path that I advise you all to take. The other path of hadith dogmatists is that, no, sorry, because these rules belong to scholars, and we know that that, for example, the same narrators here have been criticized, the rules are arbitrary, but because all of our sect and our group has accepted them, so, full steam ahead. Just steam over, just completely decimate the honor of the Prophet, or decimate the honor of Islam, just so long as you're happy with your little rules, which are arbitrary anyway and have been challenged by other Hadith scholars. So I advise people not to take that. And then what they do is they make up interpretations. Oh yeah, maybe the Prophet told Sayyidina Ali to kill him because, you know, it was, because he knew there was something else wrong with him. Yeah, so this is one of the interpretations they came up with. Like, yeah, he must have been a hypocrite. And the Prophet never told Sayyidina Ali about that part. But he just told him about this and told him to kill him. And you think, will you stop these acrobats? So that's my my thing. Yeah, so that's one of the justifications people give for that hadith. They say Sayyidina Ali, the Prophet told him, but maybe there was another reason that he never told Sayyidina Ali about killing him, but he just kept that to himself. Like, was he a hypocrite? And you think, well, that's not how it works, mate. Yeah, so what are your views on the Sana'a manuscript? I have got a whole segment on that. It's on YouTube. I go into it in much detail. Abu Unaysa says, if you miss a sunnah in wudu, is your wudu valid? Yes, of course it is. The wudu is valid if you miss out the sunnah. But you should do them. But do you watch Made in Chelsea? I don't actually. I don't even know what that's about. Mufti, will you ever open a madrasa? I doubt it. But maybe, no, not maybe. I will be doing, you know, teaching, but not like an institute. Institutions just rob the life out of you. I don't know if I want the life robbed out of me. That's all. If I miss you, what should I do? Hi, Chaudhry Usman ji. Just remember me. हम आपके दिल में रहते हैं यार. आपके दिल में रहते हैं. So, do you watch Game of Thrones? Jon Snow is asking me, do I watch Game of Thrones? I do, but I haven't seen the last season. Right, so what else is going? Let's tackle some questions. Right, some people had asked me that I'd done a whole series on Al-Andalus. Right, have you read, sorry, that, right, so many questions as I'm trying to catch. Yeah, Abu Layth, 50% of the hadith of, what about the other 50%? If 50% of the hadith from about the coming of Jesus are all from Zuhri, what about the other 50%? Baat mein dam hai. You know, you see, about 80% of them are all through Abu Huraira, radiallahu an. And in all honesty, Abu Huraira in this issue was just influenced by his, you know, by his Ahlul Kitab teachers, his kind of Jewish and Christian teachers. He was influenced by them, like by Ka'b al-Ahbar and people like that. Because it's documented, he himself says that, look, I used to go and spend a lot of time with Ka'b al-Ahbar, learning from him. And, you know, he mixed things up. Or this is either that, or people after him attributed them to Abu Huraira by mistake. But anyway, I've got a whole detailed video on that, the prelude video. And I have promised a lengthier, super lengthier version, which inshallah will come. Replying to SK Gate after any signifies scandal. Yep, like the Watergate. Yes, of course, like my Bukhari Gate video. Of course. Nihayat Ustura, the end of a fairy tale. Allah, Allah, Allah. Some people were very, very offended when I did that. Were there 360 idols in the Kaaba? And didn't Ibrahim alayhi salam make a dua? Was his dua not accepted? I mean, it was accepted. you see, I'm not so sure that he made a dua that don't make this a place of idols. Like he said, make this a place of Rabbi ja'al hadha al-balada aminan, make this a safe, secure place. Make it that, bring the hearts of people to this. Turn their hearts, make them come to this place. And that's true that Makkah did become a kind of a focal point within Hijaz, rather by extension, Jazirat al-Arab. It became a focal point for the Arabs. So that is true. He never said that, don't make this, don't ever let there be an idol in that sense. No, that's a separate dua. You're talking about the Rabbi innahunna adlalna kathiran min an-nas, that these idols have misled many people, Allah, that's a separate, but that's not to do with the Kaaba per se in that sense. So his dua was accepted. Ya Aba Layth, is coke halal? Hell yeah, hell yeah. Right, so what was I about to say? I was asked about, I've got a whole series on the history of Al-Andalus. What resources did I use? I used multiple resources. There was, amongst them, Tariq Swaydan's book is very good on Al-Andalus. It's a very detailed book. I did rely on his book, amongst others as well. Because I was very passionate about Al-Andalus, I'd been reading up regardless for several years about Al-Andalus before I did the course. Reading up sometimes just biographies, Qadi Iyad's Tabaqat, where he gives like small anecdotes of what's going on. I'd been reading Abu Bakr ibn Arabi's kind of journals, where he speaks about what used to go on in Al-Andalus. Other books about just what was the urf in Al-Andalus, what was going on at the time. So there were many things. I heard many lectures, but if there was a book that that was definitely relied on heavily as a book, as opposed to just scattered resources, which I did lean back on many scattered resources, but as a book, I would probably say Tariq Swaydan's was excellent, and I did use that a lot as well. Right, okay, so what else, people? What else is going on? Right, okay, so I've been asked, by the way, I've been asked about Imam Nawawi. So some people said, look, you've been mocking Imam Nawawi. Why? Because I said, look, I was speaking about, so in a previous clip, I'm speaking about homosexuals. And I'm saying, well, look, if people want to be homosexual, my point was just let them be, leave them alone. That was my point. I didn't say in the thing that I said that, look, we can believe it's impermissible. However, there have been some ulama in Islam that believed homosexuality was permissible. Now, and I quoted like Qadi Yahya ibn Aktham and other people that did believe it was permissible. And then I said, look, even though we may not follow these opinions, but if these people do follow it and it makes their life livable and bearable, then just leave them alone. That was my point. That what's the big deal? We disagree on almost everything else anyway with each other. So we disagree with some of these people. How does it harm us? Now, I said that, look, homophobia seems to be more a modern Muslim, Western Muslim phenomenon, as opposed to an Eastern. So in countries like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, it has a very high rate of homosexuality. It's often bisexuality, and in some places, especially Saudi Arabia, it's actually just homosexuality that women no longer do it for them. Unfortunately, it's like, so if you get offered some job in Saudi Arabia, just be very wary. Okay. Seriously, it's crazy out there, I have a friend of mine who is religious, and, I don't just mean like a casual guy who's not even like he's not like illiterate about the deen. He's studied to a certain extent, you know. He's not like he's like he knows about the deen. He studied good intermediate knowledge of the deen as well, very fluent in Arabic, things like this. And so he's working over there, and he was telling me once some of the things that go on in Saudi Arabia, and it's like, what the what? So he was telling me this one time he got invited to, like, some of the guys say, hey, listen, and remember, he's in one of the hardcore heartland of Najd. You know, the heartland of Najd, where the heartland of the Wahhabiyah is, like, in the homeland. He's over there. And he was saying he got invited this one time to, like, just chill. Like, you know, like some of the guys said, listen, why don't you come around and chill? And he said, yeah, sure, fine. You know, probably, you know, maybe they'll smoke shisha. We'll have some chai, gup shop, bahwa. You know, so he got there and they pulled out these kind of ridiculous sex toys. So you can imagine he thought, this one not nice, this one, my friend. So he was like, what the hell is that? So then, time for a sharp exit. So my point is that there was obviously some miscommunication. You know, they like we were having the communication, and then in between there was some miscommunication. They like, we thought we had an understanding, but this one was a misunderstanding. No problem. Next time. Right, so this is the kind of stuff. They have some crazy stuff going on in Saudi Arabia, honestly. A lot of the people are, it's a pandemic. I think he was also informing me of the, you know, the equivalent of, they have these kind of like dogging practices. So where they basically like an open queue in certain public areas for sex. But the way they do it is it's on these highways, and the guy opens his bonnet on it like a bonnet. He opens his car bonnet, and then it's to pretend the car's broken down on a highway, and then he's at the side, and this is the queue. This is the I gotcha. So, and then what happens is other Saudi guys going past will pull up, and they'll be like, AA assistance is here, roadside assistance is here. And so what happened, there was this incident he was telling me, which was in the papers, where some bechara, some miskin had actually got trapped. It was a genuine case, unbeknownst to him, about the legends of dogging going on in the highway. He actually was trapped under his car. His arm was kind of trapped, and he was stuck, and his car was broken down. So along came an individual, thought, your AA expert is here, my friend. And so that bechara was stuck, and unfortunately he got raped. It wasn't the kind of assistance he was asking for, but he got unfortunately he got some other assistance, and then he's like, what the hell? So this case was then in the papers, because obviously he reported it. So this whole thing, so you can imagine how mad it is in Saudi Arabia. It's so anyway, people, no, you know what, those Saudi people, they can afford, somebody said they can't afford marriage. Oh, they can. Chaska hai boss, chaska. they've got the addiction now. Now they've gone 180, they've gone that way now. So I think it's Will you be going to see the Game of Thrones Iron Throne when it visits Bullring? Oh, is it coming to Bullring? I don't know about that. Okay, let me see. I don't know. Check my schedule. Right, so anyway, yeah, coming back to... So people were offended, saying, why did you say about Imam Nawawi that he said, oh, he found big younger boys, not little boys, but like teenage boys, to be attractive, more attractive than many women. What I was trying to say was that, look, these scholars were acknowledging a kind of bisexuality. Because if I say, like, if you're going to say, oh, I think that guy's really sexy, then is it to say that you are acknowledging, and especially if you're saying that, oh, I think he's more attractive than many women. You see, it's different if you're saying, oh, I think he's an attractive guy. Like, I think I can see that he's an attractive guy, that women would find him attractive. That's different. That's, you're just making an assessment. But if you're saying that, look, I think he's more attractive than many women, then this one, a little naughty, you know. So here you're acknowledging that you can recognize that appeal. So I was saying that many of these scholars, they seem to acknowledge their bisexuality to a great degree. And my point of saying that wasn't to diss Imam Nawawi, but it was to say that he, amongst many of these scholars, do that. So, you know, what do you do there then? If you have so much homophobia, do you hate him for acknowledging that he too can recognize this appeal? I'm not saying he did anything, but I'm just saying... And so people are like, you liar, why you cussing Imam Nawawi? Why you cussing Imam Nawawi? Any cussing? Why you cussing Imam Nawawi? This one cussing Imam Nawawi? So I'm like, hold your horses. I'm not cussing Imam Nawawi. Why would I cuss Imam Nawawi? I'm just quoting him. They're like, oh, the liar. Where? Imam Nawawi book? Where? Where in the book? Where? Oh, sorry, this one upside down. I forgot I'm illiterate because I'm illiterate because my parents were siblings. So it's okay, you know, brother, sister, okay, you know. Right, so calm down, people, calm. I'll show you. This is a compilation. These are the compilations of Fatawa of Imam Nawawi, right? So if you go to the section in Kitabun Nikah wa Talaq, he's asked that هل يجوز النظر إلى الأمرد, that can you look at a boy who, you know, there's teenage boys who haven't fully developed beards yet and things like that. And he says, so he begins his answer. That's the question. He has a whole question. Then he says, مجرد النظر إلى الأمرد الحسن. So simply looking at a clean-shaven boy, sorry, I mistranslate, you know. Simply looking at a good-looking Hassan, clean-shaven boy is haram. سواء كان بشهوة أم بغيرها, regardless of whether he looks at him with desire or without desire. إلا إذا كانت لحاجة شرعية كحاجة البيع والشراء أو التطبب أو التعليم. And he says, unless there was some shari'i excuse, like he came to your shop, or you were buying something, or you were a doctor, or you were teaching him. Otherwise, just even simply glancing, you know, it's the haram. This one haram. No. This one haram. Right? So it's simply haram. And then he goes on, and then he mentions, look, he says, okay, they use this ayah to say it's haram. وَلِأَنَّهُ فِي مَعْنَى الْمَرْأَةِ, because he really is in the same meaning as a woman. Woman. And then he doesn't stop there. He says, لأنه في معنى المرأة, he's in the same meaning as a woman. بل بعضهم, rather some of them, some of these attractive beardless boys, بل بعضهم أحسن من كثير من النساء. That they are better, more prettier than many women. Ooh. This one I don't make up. So my point of saying that was me simply highlighting. I wasn't trying to diss Imam Nawawi. I was trying to say he at least had the honesty of saying, look, he felt that, look, you know, yeah, I find them attractive and I find girls attractive, but it doesn't mean he did anything. But so my point of saying this is relax, you know. No need to shoot the messenger. I was simply reading. I was told to read Iqra, so I was reading. So the point is that it doesn't mean he's, well, actually it means these people must have had a bisexual nature. They must have. How else can you say that, oh, I think these boys are more prettier than most women or many women? To say that, you have to be able to find them attractive. So that was my point. The focus point wasn't on him. My focus point was on saying chill out and don't be so homophobic. That was my point. So anyway, right, so let's move on now. What other question is going? And I just wanted to say that, so by the way, the people said, look, I just wanted to say, they said, oh, here's Abu Layth. Here's Abu Layth insulting Imam Nawawi and saying it's permissible and permitting homosexuality. First of all, I never said homosexuality was fine. I said that some ulama said it, and if people followed it, who cares? That's them following that opinion, and many opinions exist in Islam. And then some people had commented saying, all Muslims have agreed. You know, the one thing they agreed was homosexuality was haram. I mean, is it seriously? What is the insecurities with people? I want to ask, like, for the love of God, seriously, is the male rectum the final frontier, the final bastion holding up this faith? The only thing holding up this faith is the male rectum. And now if that goes, the faith goes. It's like, please, all I'm saying is the strength in that sphincter. You better just hold tight, because if this goes down, the whole of Islam, that was the final frontier. There was nothing beyond beyond that sphincter. There is just kufr. It is just darkness, people. ظُلُمَاتٌ بَعْضُهَا فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ. It's just ظُلُمَات and ظُلُمَات. So, people, is this all it is? So, for God's sake, calm yourselves down. Relax yourselves. Okay? Right? Calmate. Right? So, people, that's what... Right, you seem like a gynecologist. Do I? Okay. Right, so let's take some other questions, people. Let's take some other questions. What's going on? I mean, it's like, because if that is the case, somebody tell us. Because we're carrying a hell of a lot of responsibility. I'm like, wow. To realize I was carrying all that responsibility this time as a man. You know, like... But anyway, right, so What is going on, people? What is going on? Mufti, what languages? Well, the usual. The usual Urdu, Mirpuri. Oh, Bolivia, Chania, Mirpuri. Arabic, English, Espanol. I'm taking classes, intermediate level in Espanol, but I'm trying to learn Sanskrit. I've got some classes going on. I'm intrigued I love languages, honestly. I think it's amazing, you know, the languages are like codes, and it's like you can crack a code. But yeah. Mufti Metin Teke, I respect you a lot, but you know, when that but comes, it's like, you know, somebody says, look, I have a lot of respect for you, but you know, if somebody says that, basically understand that that final frontier is about to go. That they're preparing their criticism in a rocket. Get ready to say goodbye to that final bastion of faith, right? So, but you insult people who objectively question your statements. Why do you do that? You're better than that. God damn, you're better than that. God damn it. Ew. Don't let anybody put you down. Life, what's that Rocky speech? You know, that Rocky one where he's telling his son that life will beat you to your knees and it will keep you there. It's an awesome speech, epic. I used to listen to it during my gym workout. Like, you're better than that, God damn it. Yeah. So, right, so we've established the butt is dangerous. It is dangerous. This butt, honestly, harful istidrak carries a hell of a lot of, they call that harful istidrak in Arabic. Right, so let's take some of the questions, people. What else is going on? What else preoccupies the minds of the amazing Facebook people? Took the covenant. Whoa, you know, you press on read more and a whole book opens. I give you a book of wisdom. And can you explain this most difficult? Who was that once that went to all of the prophets confirming the book? You see, my understanding was that, I'll check again the verse that you're saying, but my understanding was that you know, then there's different verses about Ja'akum ar-Rusul, or that messengers come to you and they affirm what went before them. Do you accept it, that covenant? My understanding is that is not addressing prophets, that's addressing people. In that particular verse, it's Bani Israel, about the verse that's coming to my mind, but it's addressing people, not the prophets, that we sent messengers and we did this and then other messengers came affirming them, you know, did you accept them? That's the understanding. What do you think of Sam Harris and his views on free will? Sam Harris, I think, is an amazing intellectual. I really do, his thinking is amazing. You can't knock that. I mean, obviously, as a Muslim, I disagree with many things, not everything, but many things he will say, especially about Islam. My issue with Sam Harris is really just the fact that I think in the last few years, maybe 3 years, 2 to 3 years, he became quite burnt out and bitter about Islam, very bitter. And that kind of really, to me, was very, very disappointing to see in a thinker. That he's become, even if somebody is anti-Islam, like as in they're opposed to religion and they critique religion and they criticize religion, that doesn't make me hate them. You know, I'm curious in what they have to say. I will listen to them. I've heard a lot of Sam Harris. I've heard a lot of other speakers. Hitchin was extraordinary in his way of thinking, in his kind of wit, in his criticism, in his he was something. Dawkins, I think, is amazing in some of the things he does. That doesn't mean, you know, we've got to understand something. You know, we as Muslims sometimes become incredibly tribalistic. Like, we think, like, once anybody critiques or criticizes Islam, we must always hate that person now. It's not true. We don't have to hate them. I mean, to be honest, I don't hate people who just criticize Islam. I become, like, first of all, there's a lot of people who are just junk. They're not thinkers anyway. It doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't even matter what they don't even count. They're like they don't even, you know, they just froth. And, you know, they're in that category that doesn't even have a voice, really. Then you have actual thinkers, people who you have to acknowledge that, wow, these people are incredible thinkers. And amongst them, you would definitely put people like this. You'd put people like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson. You'd put people like, Richard Dawkins. You'd put people like Christopher Hitchens, Dan Dennett. These people are amazing thinkers. Like, not everybody that gets up there. Like, you have that, what's her name, Hirsi, for example. I don't think she's a great thinker at all. I mean, that's my understanding. I haven't heard too much of her, but what I have heard of her is she hasn't come across as I'm like an amazing thinker. She just come across, she's very critical of Islam. But that's my point. So it doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge that some amazing attributes about people. I think we should be mature enough to do that as Muslims. So, but that's my view. I am disappointed in Sam Harris's kind of burnt out nature towards Islam. His free will thing is very interesting. I found it very interesting. It's not his argument, by the way. This is an argument by many neuroscientists and many psychologists who say that, right, have you heard of Jay Smith? I'm not sure who Jay Smith is. Is that motivational speaker? No, right. So, now, this free will argument that he also reiterates, Sam Harris does, is very interesting. It kind of hinges on the fact that there are certain subconscious precursors, certain subconscious activity taking place that is determining or influencing much of our decisions. Now that, I think, is undeniable. And I loved the debate between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, by the way, the first one they did. I would actually say, for any serious people of religion, that is a mandatory watch. That is something that you must watch. I had to actually watch it over so many segments because I had to actually pause at certain points and research some of what they're saying. Because it was just, this is so amazing. Honestly, I was so, that debate, I know they've had about 2 or 3 now, but the first one was epic. But I think this whole thing of we have certain things at play. There are other elements that are we also influencing those things. Like, do we influence our subconscious? So now Freud and other psychologists would say, well, you see, our desires influence that at a subconscious level. So our desires play into our subconscious, which then plays into our conscious mind and influences that. I think that's interesting. So I liked an experiment that Sam Harris does where he says, look, I give you whatever, I'd like you to think of 5 cities throughout the world. Just don't tell me, have them in your mind. And then he says, well, look, after that he names certain cities. Like, let's just say, for example, I don't know, Timbuktu. Now he says that that may not have been a city that, you know, that you guys may have chosen, even though you've all heard of Timbuktu. The question is, why did you, the cities that came to your mind, like when you thought Paris, London, I don't know, whatever you thought, New York, Tokyo, Hong Kong, whatever you thought, those cities that came to your mind, the question is, why them? Because it's not like you didn't know about, you know, like let's say, it's not that you haven't heard of the city Multan, for example, or let's say Shanghai, or let's say you have heard of these cities, but why didn't they come to your mind? So there's something in your subconscious that brought these cities that did come to your mind, whether it was Hong Kong, London, Paris, whatever it was, there was something at play. So before you even chose, there was some limitation on your choice that was placed by you subconsciously. So how much free will do you actually have? Because in that moment when you chose those cities, even though you knew that, let's say, you may have known Lahore is a city, but your free will did not allow you to choose Lahore. So my point is that I think that's a very interesting discussion. Definitely. But we as Muslims, we do acknowledge free will, but free will is a very complicated, complex kind of understanding. I understand it as like a video game that has already been designed. And so everything is ultimately designed, but what you choose is like the player, where he gets to in the game is that player's capacity. The choices that player makes along the way, he chooses to go this way, not that way, to pick up this accessory, to leave that accessory, to get to... That's their playing and their choices, but the game in essence was designed. The difference is Allah, we believe God would know, because of his complete knowledge, what you would choose, but we can't understand his knowledge. But we're not forced to make those choices. That's my understanding. So, okay, cool. Right, people, right, okay, cool. I was about to... Let's take some rapid round questions. I haven't caught up with Jordan Peterson's latest debate with Zizek, or however they pronounce it, but I've heard that it was quite disappointing, people say. Mufti, what is your position on abrogation in Quran? Can Sahih Hadith abrogate ayat in the Quran, as some claim? You see, I don't believe that the Quran is abrogated by Hadith, but I believe that the Hadith may shape some understandings and give clarity to some verses of the Quran and things like that. I do believe that the Quran has abrogation in it, as in rulings change from one point to another. But this, you see, there's two approaches to this. One approach is, okay, it's just to document, it's just an observer approach, right? So to these people, abrogation is simply it's just a map. It's not the territory. It's not a tool. It's just a picture, a piece of artwork to hang up on the wall. So it's like that famous, you have that famous painting of a pipe, and it says in French that this is not a pipe, because it's simply a painting of a pipe. So that the map is not the territory, and the whole this whole theological or philosophical discussion. My point is that abrogation exists. Are we simply to acknowledge, okay, it exists, full stop, done? So it happened here. Why did it happen? Because Allah didn't prohibit alcohol in one go. It took time, and then verses were revealed. Or Allah, there was something to do with inheritance like this, and then there was this verse, or there was this, and then there was this. That's one way. The other thing is, and this is, I'm part of this camp, okay? that is that when Allah did these things in the Quran, He did this not as just artwork, but that this was a tool that would then be handed down, and you are to inherit this tool. So the Prophet ﷺ would also pass certain rulings, he would abrogate rulings that have existed. Maybe he's legislated, like when he said, okay, Medina is like this, you can't do this in Medina, you can't uproot a plant, and then somebody said, well, okay, accept this plant, and then he made an exception. Now, this tool is something that the Ummah inherits. So there is trajectory hermeneutics. So as human beings develop, as civilizations further develop and mature, certain rulings would become abrogated. So like slavery, for example, as humanity rises to that plateau, that level, slavery becomes haram. In a similar way, other rulings would. So this ruling of abrogation, it's a tool. I see this as a tool, as many ulama saw this as a tool, but many others just saw it as artwork. That's it. It's just descriptive. It's not something that you can actually apply yourselves. So that, I hope that makes some sense. Mufti, are ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda performing jihad? No, of course they're not performing jihad. What is jihad? Look, jihad is the right to by the way, I've got a clip that actually where I go into it in detail. But jihad is the right to exercise military might in the defense of preserving the faith. Okay. Now, and also it can be used preemptively to liberate. So it's basically, what is jihad? It's like what any modern nation has as their right to a military. Islam was no different. It didn't have, it set about a system where it knew that this would be a faith that would spread, that would go out. There would be expeditions, there would be encounters. So Muslims do have the right. أُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ ظُلِمُوا. That's the first verse, isn't it, for jihad? That it has now been instructed for those who were oppressed. Those who were oppressed. أَن يُقَاتِلُوا. That let them fight. So look, let's not forget, the Prophet never just attacked people. He never just did it for the sake of. Every single ghazwa of the Prophet, if you look at the maghazi of the Prophet, every single ghazwa, the other people had come to the Prophet. The armies had kind of marched, they had set up camp, and then the Prophet went out to meet them. Right? Even in Badr, if you're going to look at Badr, the Prophet wasn't sure. There was the understanding that there's going to be, is it going to be the caravan or the army? And the army came. They were hoping it was just a caravan, but it was the army. So the Prophet's life, it was always defensive. This is not apologetics. This is just description. You can just read the seerah of the Prophet. But I'm not saying that there's no such thing as an offensive, preemptive attack. That it is allowed, just as it is with any nation. But obviously it's not for, see, these are like obviously things to do with governance and ruling and having a military, and people make decisions, and people in the past have made preemptive attacks and they've been successful. Andalus was a fine example. They went in, people welcomed them. There was no way they could have conquered the Iberian Peninsula in like a month. That's ridiculous. People opened the gates, handed them the keys. Now, there's been times where they've been very successful. There've been times where they've lost abysmally. You know, like Muslims have kind of lost several things, and it's had cataclysmic kind of repercussions. But these are decisions that politics. These are decisions of the politicians of the time. And some are successful, some ain't. Right, all right, all these questions. That's right. I wanted to say as well, I've been reading up on this whole Naseet month, and it's something really which I've spoken about it already in the past, but it was that in the before pre-Islam, the Arabian calendar, according to several researchers, and this I was reading up some articles and some things written by is his name Yusuf Zaidan or some other an Egyptian. He's an Egyptian philosopher, and there were other people as well, but he was speaking about this as well, saying, look, in pre-Islamic Arabia, there used to be this Naseet. It was like a leap month placed that was added at the end of every 3 years approximately. And it was to realign the lunar calendar with the solar calendar. So everything would remain static. So you would have the 4 sacred months would always fall in the months of spring, and where people would be involved in farming, or where animal seasons, where animals were mating and things like this. So there was assured tranquility during those months. It also kept a systematic approach to calendar. And the Jews had this from the time of Moses and before, and they still have this today. They kind of realign things. And the Arabs used to do this, but in the time after the Prophet, because things were so preoccupied, they reinvented the calendar. Part of the calendar, like in the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, he set the year. Like he did consultation and said, look, people are getting confused. And then Sayyidina Ali, he asked for suggestions, and Sayyidina Ali said, look, why don't we start with the year of Hijrah as the year the Prophet migrated to Medina. We set that as ground zero, and we build forward from there. And that was an amazing suggestion, and that's what Sayyidina Umar picked up on. He took that decision, although Muharram being the first month was not when the Prophet did Hijrah, but that was just chosen to be the first month of the calendar then. But Muharram was not otherwise the first month like that. It wasn't in the sense that the month in which the Hijrah happened, if you understand what I'm saying. But it was chosen to be the first month. And then it came along and you had this whole... But now that Muslims, for some reason, there may be 2 reasons. One may be that they were just so preoccupied and got busy. The other reason is some people may have misunderstood the verse that إِنَّمَا النَّسِيءُ زِيَادَةٌ فِي الْكُفْرِ in Surah Baqarah, that Allah is saying that this month Naseet is a tool to extend kufr. So because of that, some Muslims thought this is a bad thing, Naseet, and they stopped doing it. I think that may have some truth to it, and I think that the Muslims being preoccupied may have some truth to it as well. But this verse didn't mean إِنَّمَا النَّسِيءُ زِيَادَةٌ فِي الْكُفْرِ. It meant that it was a tool being operationalized to extend kufr. Not that in and of itself it was something inherently bad. So, because what the Arabs started to do in the final years of the Prophet, when this verse was revealed, is you had 4 months which were sacred, so there couldn't be fighting or any declaration of war or anything. So what they would do is they would just use the Naseet thing and drop that in and move it back and forth and say, oh no, this is just, we can fight now because it's Naseet. And they just started to arbitrarily drop, because it's a leap month. So they started to misuse it. So that was the extension of kufr, because by kufr, they were then violating, it was at the time of Hajj, they were violating the sanctity of the Haram, they were violating the sanctity of life, they were killing people, declaration of war, not allowing crops to grow, so these kind of things. I find that very interesting. I really do wish if some people or maybe research this further. I think maybe we're too far gone now to kind of align that. But if that was the case, Ramadan would have always been static, pretty much, and it would have been like an autumnly kind of month of the year, which would have had. I mean, Arabia is pretty close in its equilibrium because of where it is with the equator. But around autumn time, it would have probably been an equal day, almost. Equal day, equal night. And I think that's, you know, so the more I'm looking into this, I am seeing as a, you know, as a dispensation for people. I'm not saying, you know, you have to do it. I'm not saying I have to do it. I'm just saying it's an opinion out there that people have been sharing that, look, in Ramadan, in those countries, can they resort to an equilibrium? Can they just resort to splitting the day in half and night in half and just fasting half the day, as in 12 hours? So if people set, for example, and you're seeing these fatwas going around, I've seen a few of them being shared from Al-Azhar and other places, and they're saying that if you just have like, let's say 6 to 6, as I say, it's an arbitrary kind of, you just set it 6 to 6, for example. Now, the more I'm reading into this Naseet thing, I'm thinking, well, I see that opinion, I'm seeing validity to that opinion. I'm not saying it has to be done. I'm not saying people have to abide by it, but people who want to abide by it, I think it's a valid option. It's not haram, in my understanding, to take the fatwa of those ulama of Al-Azhar, if a person felt a need. Because I see sometimes, like, the state we're in and what we're doing with Ramadan, you know, people are going to be sharing all this thing about fasting, it improves stem cell regrowth and it kills cancerous cells and it boosts the immune system. You're going to see a lot of this, right? Now, I'm telling you, this kind of fasting is nothing what the Muslims are doing. I mean, like, generally us Muslims here, that, like, if you read up what kind of fasting is that promotes stem cell regrowth or kills cancerous cells or does these things, right? So these things, right? Sorry, people, guys, if you don't focus, you will be blocked. If anybody's kind of trying to troll, you will be blocked. Right now, right, so the point of what I was saying, yeah, so that the way we're doing this is like, let's say you're closing your fast about 4:30 or 4 o'clock or 4:30, whenever you close, 4 o'clock, let's say, some people even earlier. You're fasting throughout an entire day. It is very hot. Okay, you will be dehydrated, whatever. That's aside, you're prepared to put up with that. Now we're opening the fast, we're stuffing ourselves. Fair enough, you're going to be hungry. Now you're going to have a short window before you have sahur. Now you're not hungry by sahur time, but you're worried about the day ahead, so you're going to stuff yourself. This is just counterproductive, and you're doing that non-stop, like for 30 days. You are just harming yourself. So that's why, looking at all of these things, I am inclined to seeing validity in that ruling. Once again, I'm not saying it's something people need to take. I'm just saying those people who wish to take it, I feel it's valid what the ulama of Al-Azhar or some of the ulama of Al-Azhar are saying. Exactly, and somebody said about, actually, a lot of the stem cell regrowth and things like, it's actually water fasting, even though some research on dry fasting, but it's not in this, it's definitely not the way we're observing Ramadan. That's what I'm saying. It's definitely not that way. I mean, there's similarities, obviously, but you guys can look into that in your own time. Okay. Cool, guys. Let's begin to wrap this up. Let's take a few rapid rounds and we'll... Right, are there any ahadith to show that Naseet was still a thing during the life of the Prophet? I think there's... You see, there are certain things, if you read up, but this is something so forgotten that you've got to do a lot of... There's like fossil traces, there's like smoking guns. So when you find a smoking gun, like the verse of the Quran, what was it talking about? إِنَّمَا النَّسِيءُ زِيَادَةٌ فِي الْكُفَّرِ يُحَرِّمُونَهُ عَامًا وَيُحِلُّونَهُ عَامًا. They make it halal 1 year, make it haram 1 year. What was this talking about? That was during the final years of the Prophet's lifetime that this verse was revealed. Right, okay. let's take some rapid round questions. Imran Ali is asking, is swearing a sin? Swearing is not a sin. Swearing is not haram, but there is a distinction. Swearing at someone can be haram. So, you see, the thing is, causing harm to somebody is haram. So if I harm you, that is haram. Now, obviously, if I'm swearing at you, that is, if it's harmful. I mean, if it's in a way where there's an understanding, well, it's not going to really harm you, then it's fine. But like if you just saw somebody say, you F in this, you MF, blah, 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 then that is to offend the person, and therefore you're causing harm, and that would be haram. But just swearing in and of itself is not haram. Like if a person just said, fuck, like that, or something like this, it's not haram. You can swear. But there's etiquettes, obviously, depends on your context, where you're swearing, like there's an appropriateness about where, and we have that in, I mean, I'm sure none of you are that stupid that you don't understand appropriateness. Like people won't swear around children, and that's just like a universal understanding generally. People understand that. They won't swear when they're being professional. They won't swear. So but it doesn't mean it's haram, but there are, there's a time and a place, put it like that, and there's etiquettes. Mufti, what is nikah misyar? Oh, behave. Khadim Rizvi Saab. Somebody said, did people used to do prostration before salah? Of course. I mean, people, many civilizations, many people always kind of prayed by bowing down and doing sujood and stuff like this. Somebody, Aiden, has asked, was it widespread in other Gulf Arab nations as well? I don't know about the other Gulf nations. I think it's because in Saudi Arabia, you see, in my understanding, extreme segregation by necessity breeds perversion. Like if you're going to lock men away from women and women away from men, generally speaking, like you can't see each other, generally speaking, you can't, that by necessity, just the way nature works, will breed perversion. Like people will just look at prisons, for example. It's not that people in prison are necessarily gay. I mean, in let's say, especially all the narrative of the American prisons or other prisons, you will see that it's just desperation, or it's just that atmosphere where they're like that. So I think by segregating extremely the way they've done in Saudi Arabia, they have kind of created this is their own Frankenstein. And I think it's the way they've done it. And it's, you know what it is? It's not even that, it's not about, like, I'm not being homophobic or anything about it, but it's the hypocrisy that they have with it that makes it so much worse. Because there's other places that are openly homosexual. They're not, nobody looks at them with that light. But it's the hypocrisy that they have, this segregation for modesty, and this is all, no, can't see women, only their eyes, and this is all, we're so modest, and then they're just screwing over just younger guys. It's the double standards that makes the whole thing so absurdly ludicrous, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's not just desperation. I think it's just the whole perversion of everything. Right, okay, people. Right, let's take a few rapid round. Then we'll call it a night, people. Any rapid questions? Now is your time to just throw them there. I didn't actually get to catch up on. Actually, I could look what it's been so immersed in this. Only seeing the eyes is a turn. Well, the eyes are very beautiful, ain't they? If you think about it, they're the window to a person's soul, as it said. As the poet said, that लोग तो आंखों में डूब जाते हैं. You know, people drown in these eyes. तुम समुद्रों की बात करते हो. You talk to me about these oceans. People drown in these eyes. So I think eyes are obviously very, very important. Well, unquestionably, otherwise poets wouldn't have filled the dawaween. Okay, I'm just trying to see if there's any rapid round questions. Right, no, we've come to the wrong thing. What am I opening? I'm joking. I'm jucking. Just jucking, people. Just jucking. Oh no, this is what's going on. I was trying to see if I could quickly get to some of those questions and just rapid round some of them. Look at this opening. It's like a book. How did you fund your Mufti education and travel? Any advice? I think today there are so many ways to do that. Khadim Rizvi Nafis saying the eyes are the nipple of the face. That's actually a very good analogy. No, I would say that the eyes are genuinely, aesthetically mesmerizing, whereas when it comes to nipples, they're just mesmerizing and we don't know why. It's like otherwise, people are just like, you see, it's like men, their brains just kind of switch off. They're like, they turn into like cavemen. They're just like, huh? So, Mufti, we at the end of days, as I'm being told, hell no, hell no. Yeah, about my fund. You see, I think today there's many ways to fund your travels. I think you could set up pages, you could do all kinds of things. You can work online, you can do things, you can... Yeah, I think back in the days it was quite difficult. But back in the days we weren't living it... When I was studying, I wasn't living it large. And there was sometimes, you know, there were some periods of my study that I went through very, very financial difficulties, actually, and really struggled. I mean, I was young, but I was very passionate to learn. But, you know, sometimes I remember, you know, honestly, like sometimes I'll just be, when I'm in my thoughtful moments and it'll get quite, you know, because there were times where you'd kind of go to sleep kind of a bit, kind of hungry and things like that. And it's difficult times, I suppose, back then. This is like we're looking 2 decades ago. It was different. Nowadays, obviously, there's so many things you could, but at that time we were just passionate to learn and just do things, and then Allah gives you afterwards. Chappar parke, you know, there's so, but you know, there's times where you will reflect and you'll think, wow, subhanallah, that, you know, that, suppose, but it's good to keep you grounded, to kind of, that hardship that you've been through, some things that you can relate to sometimes. Life, I guess, because it's not been cherry-picked, it's not been rosy, definitely hasn't been. My studies weren't, I mean, I think they got a bit more comfortable towards the end, definitely, but before that, in the early stages, they were very difficult, a lot of hardships, but I'd like to, inshallah, maybe some other time go through that in more detail. But I think finances were obviously very difficult back then as well, but I think back then our expectations weren't as much. We were just happy to kind of just get by, do what you got to do. I remember sometimes, you know, you just be like, well, all right, this large bottle of milk, that's going to be it. And, you know, there's times, but I think, as Allah says, Inna ma'al usri yusra, that with difficulty surely comes ease. Today, there's this huge, there's an amazing chilled out culture to, you know, to studying, and people are chilling, and I mean they're studying as well, you know, I mean good for them if they can study, but I think sometimes when you live it in that way. I'm not saying you should seek it out in that way, but if it does come, then you're just steadfast. That's all. You just kind of put up with it, have tawakkul. I'd advise against seeking it out. Like, don't seek out hardships. But if you are faced with hardships, don't get me wrong. When I went through those times, and you're bloody, you're thinking, I got to be very careful how I spend my money, because otherwise I'm going to run out of money. I can only eat so much. I can only do this. If at that time I had so much money, I would definitely be living it large. It's not something I was doing by choice. It was just, I was in those circumstances, as many people were. And I think the main thing is that if you face them, that you fathbutu, as in the hadith, that be firm, and you have a goal in mind and you just go for it. Like, that's my that jazba dil gar mein chahu har cheez muqabil aa jaye. If that if I want everything and anything, I will find it in front of me. That manzil ke liye do gaam chalu or samne manzil aa jaye. That all I have to do is keep walking and the destination will come in front of me. But today I think there's a lot of great opportunities. I see things like GoFundMe opportunities. I see that you can even be working, you could be doing things online. You could be comfortably studying and doing things. You've got a lot more. So may Allah make it easy. May Allah make it. Right, okay. Cool. Khadim Rizvi saying, my wife said, Agli bar jaldi aana. I misunderstood. What's that? Aise aane se to behtar tha na aana tera. Weed without THC, is that legit? Yeah, I think, look, weed I don't think is haram if it's the medical kind of, if it's actual cannabis, but the things, I'm not talking about what people lace with these other drugs and stuff like that, but fun my Walima page. Right, okay, so would you ever do educational trips to Spain? I don't, because you know what it is, at one time I actually began to do these kind of trips to Spain. I went over to Spain on a few occasions, but I went over, I prepared the course. I did the course anyway online, but I organized, we got our little team together, and then we flew over, we visited, we plotted accommodation, everything. So I had, for me, I had certain standards that if I'm not happy to live in it, then, or stay in this hotel, let's say, then I can't have people staying in it. So we found a decent hotel. It was 4-star. We cut a deal with them. We made arrangements. It was within walking distance from Al Hamra Palace. Everything, and it was in the main. And what would the day be like? What was this like? What was that like? So we did all of that, and we visited again, and to Al-Andalus. We got connected with certain people in good positions that could kind of facilitate certain things for us. They were from Granada, linked with Granada University and things like this. Then I made contact at the time there was a department funded by the government to do with the legacy, Legado de Andalucía, to do with the legacy of Andalus. And they had a funding pot to kind of revive this heritage. And they had museums, and I got connected with one of the main ladies that was operating that. And she kind of set up discounts for us. She gave us exclusive access to certain museums. So we did all of this, and then honestly, it was just a mission, really, arranging it with people. Like, I advertised it. This is going a few years back, and then people got on board. But then, you know what it was? Like, people were saying, because I can't remember now from the top of my head. I think the package worked out about £550 or something like that. And that excluded flights. and it was for your own bedroom, ensuite, everything. It was like everything was like to a standard, and I think it was a 6-day tour or something, 6 days if I remember correctly. But then it was just people were like, oh no, and then some people were like, oh, it's too much money, and then some people are like this, and some people are like that, and I just thought, you know what, this is a headache. I genuinely do not, I can't put up with this. So we just refunded the people who paid and just left it. And then I was like, no more of this. Like I can't, it's just not for me, this kind of stuff. Yeah. So, okay, but I thought it was actually quite cheap because we got a lot of deals and what we were offering. But the problem is, people always, like people will say, oh, such and such will offer something for 400 quid, 400 pounds. Why don't you do it like, and you think, well, okay, I made an ijtihadi mistake by offering this. Right, okay, cool. Guys, let's wrap this up. Yeah. So let's call it a wrap. Whoa, is that the time? And I think I've got a few TV series to watch. Oh, guys, as always, right, much love inshallah, for coming on tonight, tuning in. It's always awesome to interact, to share my thoughts. I am in the process, we're trying to work on setting up a kind of podcast thing as well. We're trying to set up the studio. We were discussing it yesterday as well, and we're still working on it, but that's going to be a different thing. So there's a few things at play, inshallah. Guys, remember me in your du'as, and everybody else who's in need of du'a, may Allah make things easy for them. If you need to reach out to me, do so. Facebook, Messenger is a better option. I do check the other messages as well, but sometimes it's a bit awkward responding in detail because Messenger allows me to leave a voice note, so it's much easier. So guys, that's Snapchat Malm 2014. Other than that, take very good care of yourselves. Till next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.